Her Excellency Thérèse Wagner, you are a foreign minister from the DRC, the foreign minister from the DRC. I want to thank you for the time that you've given us tonight to have this conversation, knowing what you've been having so many meetings here in DC, in New York. So we want to thank you to start with that first.
Thank you for having me.
Her Excellency, can you confirm to our viewers whether the M23 rebels have taken full control of Goma? Do you have also an estimate of the death toll?
First of all, I want to confirm that Goma is under foreign occupation by the Rwandan Defense Forces, the official army of Rwanda, our neighbor. Indeed, we have seen after days of intense fighting a presence of the M23 and the RDF that have now gained a large control over a majority of the city of Goma. When it comes to the death toll, because the situation has been so volatile, but also because the M23 and the Rwandan army have an interest not to depict and to allow the world to see the brutality of their attack, it is still very difficult to have a firm estimate of the number of deaths that have resulted in these days of an onslaught. We need to differentiate also in the fact that there were a lot of deaths linked to the fighting, but also many deaths linked to the fact that Rwanda very purposefully sabotaged key infrastructure in the DRC. They cut off the electricity, they shelled hospitals, and they also cut off the water. They cut off airport supply lines, and they also cut off road supply lines. So I think that even when we talk about a death toll, it is not just a death toll linked to the direct conflict, not necessarily linked to the fighting and the exchange of fire between the two factions or parties, if you want, but also linked to the ripple-off effect of the very brutal assault of Rwanda on the city of Goma, the cutting off of key infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Does your government, Her Excellency, view this as a failure to defend a major city that is Goma? How do you explain this setback, and how so many people are asking, how did this happen?
Of course, it is a setback, and it is an infuriating setback. I will not shy away from saying that. We need to acknowledge the fact that, and this has been reported for the past months, if not years, Rwanda has invested massively in arming itself and arming the M23 in Eastern Congo. They have invested in weaponry of a sophistication that was unknown until then in the region. Weaponry that has been so performing, if you want, that even the United Nations at a briefing to the Security Council clearly said that they were outgunned. We have to also be cognizant of the fact that Rwanda violated at many occasions the ceasefire that had been negotiated through the Luanda process and put in place on August 4th by using technologies such as GPS jamming, which means that the whole aerial navigation in and around Goma was completely neutralized, if you want, because of GPS jamming meant that military supply routes were in great difficulty, but also humanitarian support and civilian administration. So we should not shy away also from being cognizant and recognizing the fact that there has been an immense investment of Rwandan resources to wage this war so relentlessly. And also an immense, a willingness of Rwanda to do so with extreme brutality and with no consideration whatsoever of the human loss and the human cost of this warfare.
Is there any strategy at this moment to reclaim these territory?
We want to be very clear about this. It is unacceptable that Rwanda, a country member state of the United Nations, of the African Union, and many other organizations, illegally occupies a part of our territory. This is a reality we will never tolerate. Further to this is a reality that the rest of the world is not willing to tolerate. The Security Council had meetings last Sunday and last Tuesday, in which most of the members of the Council denounced, first of all, Rwanda's presence on the DRC territory, but also called for its immediate withdrawal. Same thing with the United Nations Secretary General. Same thing with the facilitator of the Luanda process. So we find ourselves in a situation where not just the DRC, but all of the stakeholders that are implicated and that are part of this situation are all calling Rwanda out for its illegal occupation of the DRC and demanding from Rwanda to withdraw. Top partners of Rwanda, we look at the UK, we look at the US, have issued very firm statements denouncing this violation of territorial integrity. So, of course, this is unacceptable, not just to the DRC, but I believe it is unacceptable for the rest of the world that is concerned with the respect of the international rules-based order.
Mm-hmm. There are widespread concerns that the DRC military lacks support from the government, a low pay and poor morale from affecting the ability to fight the M23. How do you respond to these claims, Her Excellency?
I want to recall that President Tshisekedi has made it a priority already in his first mandate, but also continuing in his second mandate, to improve the working conditions of our armed forces. There have been immense challenges in terms of reforming the armed forces, in terms of equipping them and making sure that they receive the support that they need. We are cognizant of the fact that this is work in progress. We are also cognizant of the fact that this should have happened faster, because it would have enabled us to resist in a more robust manner. But it does not mean that these efforts that have been made until now have been for naught. And it doesn't mean that the efforts that are necessary to improve the situation, maybe even faster than under normal circumstances, that these efforts are not going to be continued and not going to constitute a priority for us.
Mm-hmm. Her Excellency, has your government employed mercenaries to strengthen its efforts in controlling this region at all?
As part of our efforts to render our armed forces more efficient, the Congolese government made the choice to resort to capacity building support from foreign companies that worked closely with our armed forces in order to improve the performance of our armed forces.
Mm-hmm. President Tshisekedi has refused to meet with regional leaders to negotiate a solution to this conflict. Why?
I want to be clear. There is a framework for the politically negotiated end of this conflict. It is the Luanda process. If someone walked away from the framework the existing framework in which a political solution ought to be sought, it was President Kagame, who did not show up on 15th of December when we were supposed, the DRC, Rwanda, under the auspices of Angola, were supposed to sign a peace deal. So we want to reiterate the fact that the Luanda process has been mandated by the African Union. Of course, there are efforts under sub-regional organizations, such as I think what you're alluding to being the East African Community. But we must, remember that there is a logic of subsidiarity. We must remember that the main process is the one that has been mandated by the African Union. In this regard, I also recall that in the Security Council, all members of the Security Council urged that all parties return to the Luanda process. So we think it is important that the conversations that have already started and the very important progress we made in the Luanda process not be forsaken through maybe other avenues, as spontaneous as they may be, as good-willing as they may be. It is important for us to return to the Luanda process and to make sure that we cross the finish line we were so close to crossing on December 15th.
Mm-hmm. So you don't have a feeling that you have been led down by regional or international allies that you guys have, or what role, I should say, should they be playing in resolving this crisis? Do you feel like they let you guys down, your country down, or?
On the contrary, what we are witnessing are more and more voices speaking out against this violation of a territorial integrity. When we listen to what was said in the Security Council, there was absolutely no debate about who is in the right and who is in the wrong. Rwanda is extremely isolated. Its foreign support is compromised by this very belligerent posture that it has opted to choose. I want to also remind us that at the last Security Council meeting, other countries that are not members of the Security Council spoke up and asked to take the floor on this situation, and none of them sided with Rwanda. Senegal was there, Uruguay was there, Guatemala was there, South Africa was there, Burundi was there, Zimbabwe was there, and all speaking out against this dramatic situation unfolding, but also this disrespect that Rwanda has been displaying in the past weeks, months, years in regards to all that we hold holy as members of the United Nations. So no, the DRC is not isolated. Rwanda is isolated in its folly to drive the country and the whole region and to plunge us all into chaos. Rwanda is isolated right now. It is not the DRC.
Her Excellency, what is your message to the thousands of Congolese civilians right now under rebel control? How will you and your government help the population who already fled the city? Is there any plan on how to help those who already left?
Our message is clear, and it has been said by our president yesterday in his address to the nation. We are with the populations of the East, our brothers and sisters who are facing immense challenges, and we reassure them that we will not shy off any efforts to restore stability, peace in Eastern DRC. And we do so on all fronts. I am the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I am shying of no efforts to hold all our partners accountable, to hold all international accountable, to all international organizations accountable to their obligations in terms of re-establishing the rules-based order in Eastern DRC. And so on all fronts of this struggle, which is not the struggle of the people of the East, it is the struggle of all of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and it is the struggle, I believe, of Africa, because we do not want an Africa plunged into the dark years of the late 90s, where you held political office or you got political office through the barrel of the gun. We refuse to see our continent, our country fall back into those dark years. And so we are fighting on all fronts to make sure that this attempt of Rwanda to sink us all into the abyss of chaos, of suffering, will not succeed. It will not succeed, and we are fighting on all fronts. And this is our message to the Congolese people. We will prevail, and we will be victorious.
My last question, Her Excellency, your government has repeatedly accused Rwanda in supporting the M23, with President Kagame denying, he denies any involvement at all. What concrete evidence, should we say, do you have, to support your claims?
The first one, our very own countrymen and countrywomen who are living under occupation of the Rwandan Defense Forces. They tell us that they are surrounded by Rwandans. That is the first one. The second one, think about, again, the last meeting of the United Nations Security Council, when most members of the Council denounced the presence of Rwandan forces. The declarations of the United Nations Security Council members, of individual countries, as well as of the EU, calling out on Rwanda to withdraw its troops. Thirdly, we have the United Nations Group of Experts report that spoke in December of at least 4,000 troops of the Rwandan Defense Forces present on DRC soil. So we find again that Rwanda is isolated in this narrative, denying its presence. But the world sees that Rwanda has been lying throughout. The world sees Rwanda for its duplicity, and it will hold Rwanda accountable. There is no shying away from this reality. It is a reality that is visible to all stakeholders, even if Rwanda does not allow a plurality of opinions in its own countries. It cannot stop the rest of the world of speaking the truth. Even if President Kagame succeeds in muzzling his own population, he will not succeed in muzzling the rest of the world. And the truth is known. The Rwandan Defense Forces are in the DRC, and they are in the DRC in an unlawful manner and in flagrant violation of international law.
Her Excellency, I said that was my last question, but I lie. Here's my last question. What do you see as the path forward to ending this crisis?
First of all, accountability. This crisis is not an isolated crisis. This crisis is the result of 30 years of impunity. Impunity, especially when it comes to President Kagame, who has been on a constant adventure to seek to continue to pillage the east of the DRC and its natural resources. So if we want to work towards sustainable peace in the Great Lakes region, there must be accountability to end this cycle of recurring violence. Second of all, we must all return to the negotiating table. And as I said before, the Luanda process is the forum for that. President Tshisekedi has reiterated his full trust in the facilitator, the AU-appointed facilitator, President João Lourenço of Angola. And so if Rwanda is sincere in all of its discourse about seeking solutions and being concerned with peace, then Rwanda ought to return to the negotiating table. What we have seen, however, since December, when President Kagame did not show up to Luanda for the signature of the peace agreement, we have seen that Rwanda has chosen the path of war. We have seen that Rwanda has chosen the path of conflict. And we urge, as all other stakeholders have been urging, for the return to the negotiations in order for us to find a sustainable solution.
Her Excellency Thérèse Wagner, let me remind everybody that you are the DRC Foreign Minister. Thank you for this interview with Voice of America.
Thank you.
Thank you.